The hidden cost is never obvious at first. It is felt in the silence after an argument, in the way her chest tightens when his name lights up her phone. At the beginning, she believed she was chosen because of her empathy, her ability to heal, to soothe, to see the broken places in another's soul. She thought it was love, but what she could not see was the hunger beneath his charm, the way his admiration would always turn into possession, the way her compassion would slowly become a cage. The cycle always begins like a dream. The narcissist mirrors everything she longs for, every unspoken desire, every forgotten wish. He gazes at her with the intensity of a worshiper, whispering that she is different, rare, a once-in-a-lifetime find. She glows under that spotlight, drunk on the nectar of being seen so completely. But this vision is only a reflection, a projection of her light onto a hollow vessel. His need is endless, and the more he takes, the more she fades. At first, the empath tells herself it is temporary, that if she just loves him harder, heals him deeper, sacrifices a little more, he will soften. But the truth she avoids is that the cycle is not accidental. It is designed. Every high followed by a calculated withdrawal, every tenderness poisoned with sudden coldness. And soon, her body learns to crave the pain as much as the pleasure, binding her to him with invisible chains. The cost begins as small fractures. She apologizes for things she never did. She lowers her voice, fearing his disapproval. She loses sleep replaying conversations in her mind, trying to decode where she went wrong. Each compromise chips away at her sovereign self, leaving only a ghost who orbits his moods. Her empathy, once a gift, is weaponized against her. She becomes the caretaker of his ego, the hostage of his approval. There is always a moment, unseen by the world, when she stands alone in her own home and feels like a stranger. Surrounded by familiar furniture, but the air is heavy, the colors muted. The silence feels like punishment. She has given so much that even her reflection looks foreign, like a fractured mask instead of a face. And in that moment, she begins to understand that the cycle is not only about him. It is about her shadow, the hidden belief that she must prove her worth through suffering, that love is earned through sacrifice. The narcissist feeds on this shadow. He is not the villain in a simple tale. He is the mirror that exposes the wound she carries. The fear of being abandoned, the hunger to be chosen, the desperation to be enough. And as long as those wounds remain unacknowledged, she will return again and again to the same cycle, each time convincing herself this time will be different. The cost is not just heartbreak. It is the erosion of her essence, the betrayal of her own soul. Yet within this devastation lies the possibility of transformation. Because the very qualities that make her vulnerable, the depth of her feeling, her capacity to merge, her ability to sense shadows, are also the seeds of her sovereignty. The empath who survives the cycle can evolve into something far greater. The shadow queen who no longer bleeds for approval, who turns her pain into power, who no longer confuses chains with devotion. But this transformation demands that she sees the cost clearly, not as a romantic tragedy, but as a theft of her life force. She must walk into the underworld of her own psyche, confront the voice that told her she must be small to be loved, and shatter it. Until she does, the cycle continues, seductive and familiar, as intoxicating as it is destructive. The hidden cost is not measured in tears but in years. In the silence of abandoned dreams, in the ache of self-betrayal, in the fading of the wild fire that once made her untouchable. And when she realizes this, she stands at the threshold. The trap is closing, but the key is already in her hand. Whether she turns it or not will decide if she remains a ghost or becomes sovereign. And in the dim light of that realization, she feels the chill of marble beneath her feet, the whisper of a name that no longer holds power, and the faint flicker of something rising within her that he cannot touch. She remembers the beginning as a fever dream, the kind that leaves you both exhilarated and unsettled. The first time his gaze lingered, it was like a spotlight piercing through her. He made her feel luminous, as though the universe had bent itself to bring them together. He studied her every word, every gesture, reflecting back a version of her so elevated that she mistook it for truth. But a reflection in water always ripples, always distorts, and soon that perfect image fractured. The cracks appeared quietly, a sudden withdrawal of affection, an unexplained silence after she shared something vulnerable. She told herself he was stressed, tired, misunderstood. But beneath the surface, a darker current was already pulling her under. His adoration had not been love. It was possession disguised as intimacy, hunger masquerading as devotion. Each glance, each touch had been the hook. Now came the tightening of the line. The empath, by nature, believes in repair. She feels broken pieces can be fused together if only one cares enough. And so she becomes the balm, the anchor, the sacrifice. She learns to read his moods like scripture, memorizing the smallest signs of his displeasure, adjusting her tone, her dress, even her silence, just to avoid another storm. The tragedy is that she calls this love, that her willingness to endure becomes proof in her mind of loyalty. But endurance is not devotion, it is erasure. And still she stays, because the cycle is not linear. Just when she begins to question, he floods her again with adoration, with promises, with the intoxicating illusion of the beginning. It is a rhythm of cruelty and comfort, breaking and mending, that trains her nervous system to mistake chaos for passion. Her body learns to crave the rush of reconciliation, the high of being momentarily chosen again. And like any addiction, withdrawal feels like death. The hidden cost grows in the shadows. Her friendships grow distant because she is too drained to reach out. Her passions fade because there is no energy left for anything but survival. Even her body begins to betray her. Headaches, fatigue, restless nights filled with unanswered questions. Yet she smiles when others ask, saying she is fine, because the shame of admitting the truth feels heavier than the pain of carrying it alone. In the mythic layer, she has become Persephone trapped in the underworld, mistaking the pomegranate seeds for nourishment while they only bind her further. The narcissist is not Hades himself, but the archetype of control, the force that thrives on keeping her in shadow. And yet, like Persephone, the power to ascend has always been hers. The underworld is not only a prison, it is a crucible. What keeps her chained is not just him, but the part of her that fears her own power. Because to step out of the cycle means to stand alone, without the familiar push and pull, without the intoxicating highs that have become her substitute for love. It means facing the hollow silence and daring to fill it with her own voice. That is a terror deeper than his cruelty, because it forces her to confront the belief that she was never enough by herself. But the truth waits for her like a blade in the dark. Her empathy is not weakness, it is raw power, an ability to feel life at depths most cannot reach. What has been used against her can be reclaimed, forged into a weapon of discernment, a crown of sovereignty. She does not need to cut off her empathy, she must weld it to her boundaries, sharpen it with self-respect, and wield it with deliberate control. Only then does the cycle lose its grip. The cost of staying is not just the loss of years, but the theft of her myth, her story, her fire. Every time she forgives without change, every time she returns to the same dance, she abandons the path of becoming the shadow queen, the woman who no longer asks permission to exist. The longer she remains, the quieter her inner voice becomes, until she risks forgetting she ever had one. And yet, even in the silence, something stirs. A whisper of rebellion in the back of her mind, a faint but persistent knowing that there is more than this. It is not loud, not yet, but it is steady, like the heartbeat of a sovereign self calling from beneath the rubble. And as she stands before the mirror, seeing not the fractured mask but the eyes that refuse to dim, she feels the weight of a choice pressing against her chest, demanding to be made. The air is heavy, The room dim, and from somewhere distant, the echo of a door unlocking drifts through the silence. The choice is not a single act of leaving, it is a series of small deaths. Each time she resists the urge to answer his call, each time she allows the silence to stand, a part of the old self crumbles. The empath who lived to soothe, to mend, to sacrifice begins to dissolve. It feels like grief because it is grief, the loss of an identity woven through with his shadow. But beneath the mourning lies something unshakable, waiting for release. The transformation begins in the body before it reaches the mind. Her breath steadies when she no longer braces for his moods. Her shoulders, once tense and hunched from carrying his storms, slowly relax. She notices the way her skin tingles under sunlight, how the morning air tastes sharper, fresher. These small awakenings are not trivial. They are proof that life exists beyond his gravity. Each sensation is a fragment of her returning to herself. The inner story becomes the battlefield. His voice lingers even in absence, whispering that she is nothing without him, that she will regret choosing freedom, that no one else will ever want her depth. But here, in this confrontation with the echo, she learns the most deep. Anger is truth. The narcissist was never the true captor. It was her own unhealed shadow, the belief that love must be earned through suffering, that kept her chained. Once she sees this, his power fractures. The mythic layer reveals itself as she steps into the archetype of the Shadow Queen. Unlike the empath who poured herself empty, the queen is deliberate. She chooses when to give and when to withhold. Her empathy becomes a throne, not a leash. Her presence becomes an aura of quiet dominance, unsettling to those who once fed on her weakness. She is no longer available for the games of possession because she has reclaimed the one thing that cannot be mirrored or stolen, her sovereignty. But transformation is not clean. It is jagged, unpredictable. One night she feels untouchable, radiant in her silence. The next she aches with longing, tempted to return to the cycle just for the comfort of familiarity. This is the crucible where the old self claws to survive, where the wounds beg to be reopened. And yet, with each wave of temptation resisted, she forges resilience. She does not become flawless, she becomes whole. Small rewards appear like constellations in the dark. She notices how strangers linger a little longer in her presence, sensing the shift. She rediscovers the music that once made her blood stir, the books that spoke to her hidden wisdom, the dreams she abandoned in the fog of survival. Each rediscovery feels like stolen treasure returned, and with each, her allure deepens, not because she seeks to enchant, but because she embodies a woman who has walked through fire and emerged sovereign. In this stage, she learns the alchemy of her shadow. The pain that once consumed her now becomes her magnetism. She wears her scars not as shame but as symbols of depth. People sense it, the quiet feral energy of a woman who has faced the abyss and refused to drown. This is the allure of the high priestess, the one who sees beyond masks, who carries hidden knowledge in her silence. And in her eyes, others glimpse their own unacknowledged truths. The narcissist may circle back as they always do. He may knock with flowers, with apologies, with the polished mask of regret. But his presence no longer feels like oxygen, it feels like smoke. She does not rage, nor does she plead. She simply observes, sovereign and unshaken, as though watching a performance she has already outgrown. What once hooked her now feels hollow, a shadow play without substance. The spell has broken. Yet even as she rises, the cost she once paid remains etched in her bones. She remembers the nights of silence, the way her own voice trembled, the way her essence dimmed. These memories do not weaken her, they crown her. For she understands now that every descent into shadow was not a punishment but an initiation. The empath was devoured, but in her ashes the Shadow Queen stands, untouchable, deliberate, forged in her own fire. And in the quiet aftermath of this awakening, as she steps barefoot across the cold marble floor, she feels a storm gathering in the distance. not outside but within. The storm of a woman who knows her power, who no longer negotiates her worth, who carries both her light and her darkness as weapons. The storm does not arrive with destruction but with clarity. It sweeps away the haze that once kept her bound, revealing sharp lines where there was once blur. She begins to see every interaction through a different lens, no longer seduced by words alone but by the resonance behind them. She notices how many speak in masks, how many crave to feed on softness, how many fear the weight of true presence. What once confused her now feels transparent, and with this sight comes power. In this clarity, her energy shifts. She no longer rushes to fill silences or smooth over tensions. Instead, she allows pauses to linger, her stillness becoming its own form of authority. The empath once feared abandonment and so gave endlessly. The Shadow Queen knows her absence is more potent than her presence when wielded deliberately. Every withdrawal of her attention becomes a calculated act, every offering of her gaze a gift that must be earned. She does not seek revenge against the narcissist, because revenge would still bind her to his orbit. Instead, she practices a deeper form of severance, the refusal to be defined by his shadow. She no longer explains, no longer justifies. Her life becomes her answer, her silence the most deafening response. This is where allure deepens, not in the game of conquest but in the unshakable aura of one who no longer plays. Yet this power is not without weight. The shadow she integrates whispers caution, the temptation to become the mirror image of what once harmed her, to wield seduction not as art but as weapon, to command with cruelty rather than presence. But she recognizes the difference. The femme fatale within her thrives on allure, yes, but it is allure without dependence. She does not consume, she chooses. She does not bind, she releases. This distinction makes her untouchable, sovereign in her power rather than enslaved by it. And with each step, the world responds differently. Men who once saw her as a savior now hesitate, unnerved by the intensity of her gaze. Women who once pitied her now feel compelled, drawn to the mystery she carries, sensing in her an unspoken permission to reclaim their own shadows. Even in silence, she exerts gravity, not because she demands it, but because she has become it. Her transformation echoes through myth. She is Lilith, the one who refused to kneel, exiled yet unbroken, sovereign in the wilderness. She is also Inanna, descending into the underworld stripped of all adornments, only to ascend crowned in greater glory. These archetypes were not distant goddesses, but mirrors of the journey she now embodies. Every woman who dares to leave the cycle touches this lineage, carrying within her the primal memory of rebellion and rebirth. And still the wounds whisper. On quiet nights she feels the ache of what was lost, the years spent in silence, the tenderness wasted on someone who could never receive it. But she no longer collapses into the ache. She lets it burn through her, a sacred fire that refines rather than destroys. Pain becomes her oracle, guiding her choices, sharpening her discernment. What once haunted her now bows to her. The small rewards accumulate. She begins to dream again, not of him, but of herself. Visions of projects, journeys, creations that once felt impossible. She notices how her body feels lighter when she speaks her truth without apology. She delights in the texture of crimson silk against her skin, in the chill of a night breeze that feels like freedom. These moments are not decoration. They are the living proof that she has reclaimed the throne within her own life. And yet, just as she rises, she realizes that freedom is not only for her. Her transformation ripples outward. Each time she embodies her sovereignty, she silently invites others to do the same. Each time she refuses to shrink, she carves a path for another woman still trapped in the cycle. Her life becomes both mirror and map, proof that the cost of staying is devastating, but the reward of leaving is transcendent. The air thickens with anticipation, as though the universe itself waits for her next move. The marble beneath her feet vibrates with unspoken possibility, and somewhere in the shadows, a crown glimmers, waiting to be claimed. The crown is not handed to her. It is forged in silence. She understands now that empowerment does not erupt in a single triumphant moment, but in the slow, deliberate act of choosing herself again and again. Each morning she rises without waiting for his validation. She strengthens the muscle of sovereignty. Each night she rests without replaying his words. She reclaims another fragment of her spirit. The crown is built from these fragments, welded by resilience, polished by fire. Her presence evolves into something magnetic. It is no longer the open, pleading energy of the empath who begged to be understood. It is the calm gravity of a woman who has walked through betrayal and refuses to beg again. When she enters a room, she does not announce herself, yet all eyes turn. This is the allure of mystery, the siren energy that does not chase but pulls. She is not desperate to be chosen because she has chosen herself, and that decision radiates like an invisible flame. This is where her shadow ceases to be an enemy and becomes her ally. The same intensity that once bound her to the narcissist now fuels her discernment. She can sense manipulation in the subtle shift of tone, the delayed text, the too polished compliment. She no longer confuses red flags with invitations to heal. She does not rush to repair. She simply observes, her silence sharper than any accusation. This is not paranoia, it is power refined by pain. And yet the true transformation lies deeper still. She begins to realize that freedom is not just escape from him, but escape from the version of herself that needed him. The woman who thought love was sacrifice. The girl who believed worth was measured in suffering. These identities dissolve like smoke, leaving behind a self who is neither savior nor victim, but sovereign. This realization is both terrifying and intoxicating, for it strips away excuses and leaves only truth. In her truth, she becomes untouchable, not because she hides, but because she no longer fears exposure. Her flaws are not weaknesses, they are signatures of depth. Her scars are not wounds, they are proof of survival. She does not need to prove her goodness, nor does she bend under accusations. This calm defiance is what makes her magnetic. She is not trying to be desirable, yet desire follows her. She is not chasing power, yet power gravitates to her. The outer story of relationships shifts. Suitors arrive, drawn to her radiance, but she no longer enters every knock at her door. She evaluates with precision, sensing intention, watching how words align with actions. She knows now that presence is currency, and she spends hers only where it multiplies rather than diminishes. This is the quiet dominance of the Shadow Queen, who does not need to raise her voice to command. Her refusal is as powerful as her yes. The mythic layer deepens. She embodies the high priestess, carrying hidden knowledge that few dare to hold. Her empathy is now sharpened into intuition, a weapon that cuts through illusion. She no longer fears the underworld because she has walked its corridors and found herself intact. Others may whisper about her mystery, some may fear it, but all who encounter her know instinctively. She is not a woman to be consumed. She is a force to be reckoned with. Her allure shifts from surface beauty to essence. It is in the deliberate pause before she speaks, the steady weight of her gaze, the way she does not flinch in silence. It is in the way she carries herself, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone who already knows her worth. This essence cannot be mirrored, cannot be faked, cannot be stolen. It is born only in the crucible of shadow, and it radiates with the quiet ferocity of someone who has died and been reborn. And yet, as she ascends into this new reality, she knows the cycle still lurks in the world. The narcissist archetype is not defeated. It is eternal, resurfacing in different faces, different disguises. But she no longer fears it, because what once trapped her now serves as recognition, a signal that she is in the presence of hunger, not love. And instead of being consumed, she smiles, sovereign and untouchable, and turns away. As she closes the door on what once defined her, the echo of her own footsteps fills the silence. Each step is deliberate, each step a declaration, and in the distance, she senses something greater than freedom itself, a new empire rising from within. The empire does not begin with walls or thrones. It begins within. She notices the quiet sovereignty in her daily gestures, the way she pours tea slowly, the way she walks without rushing, the way she speaks with pauses that leave others leaning forward. These details may seem small, but they are the architecture of her new world. Where once she was consumed by his moods, now she is consumed only by her own deliberate presence. In this new reality, she no longer asks, "Will he love me?" Instead, she asks, "Does this align with my truth?" It is a shift so subtle that outsiders cannot name it, but they feel it. They sense the absence of need, the untouchable steadiness, the feral grace that makes her both magnetic and intimidating. This is the paradox of power. She attracts more by needing less, commands more by speaking less, reigns more by grasping nothing. Her relationships transform, not just with others but with herself. She discovers pleasure in solitude, finding richness in the click of her heels against empty streets, in the texture of silk against bare skin, in the soft resistance of her own breath during meditation. These are no longer escapes from loneliness, but celebrations of sovereignty. Each moment is a reminder that she does not need permission to revel in her own existence. But freedom also brings responsibility. She cannot return to old patterns without betraying herself. The narcissist archetype will appear again, in subtler forms, in people who seem different but carry the same hunger. This is her trial, not to banish darkness from the world, but to integrate it within herself so completely that no external shadow can overtake her. She does not destroy the archetype, she outgrows it. This integration sharpens her allure. She carries the aura of someone who has danced with demons and returned crowned. Others cannot explain why their pulse quickens in her presence, why her silence unsettles them, why her laughter lingers long after she leaves. It is because she embodies paradox, softness and steel, empathy and boundary, light and shadow fused into a single form. She no longer hides her darkness. She wears it as ornament, as proof of depth. The mythic echoes resound louder now. She is not just Lilith or Persephone. She is Kali, both creator and destroyer, a force that clears space for rebirth. She is also Aphrodite in her higher form, not the goddess of mere seduction, but of sovereignty, who chooses lovers as equals, not saviors. In her, the archetypes blend, forming a lineage of untamed feminine power that no cycle can contain. Still, nights come when the old ache stirs. She remembers the way she once craved his validation, the way she mistook obsession for love. But now, when the memory flickers, she does not collapse. She watches it like a shadow play on the wall, familiar but no longer binding. These memories serve as reminders of her passage, not as chains. And with each recollection, her crown gleams brighter, forged by the contra. And of what she endured. The world responds differently to her now. Opportunities arise where once doors were closed. People seek her presence not because she chases them, but because her sovereignty pulls them in. They sense that she has touched something they long for but cannot name. To some, she is intimidating. To others, intoxicating. To all, she is unforgettable. The hidden cost of staying in the cycle was the theft of her essence. But the reward of leaving is not merely freedom. It is transformation into something untouchable. She is no longer the empath drained by shadows. She is the sovereign woman who walks with her own. She is no longer haunted by silence. She is the silence that haunts others. And as dawn spills its pale light across her room, illuminating the cold marble floor, she does not tremble at the shadows anymore. She steps into them, veiled and radiant, knowing that her true empire begins where fear once lived. Her empire begins not with conquest but with command of herself. She understands now that sovereignty is not the absence of vulnerability but the mastery of it. She allows herself to feel deeply, but she no longer drowns in those depths. When tears come, they are deliberate, a release she permits rather than a collapse she cannot control. This is the difference between the empath bound by shadows and the sovereign who moves through them as a queen through her own corridors. She moves differently. Her gestures are slower, deliberate, as though time bends to her presence. Others feel it too, the magnetic pull of her stillness, the unspoken weight in the way she holds a gaze, the way silence becomes a stage she commands with ease. Once she was consumed by the fear of being too much. Now she understands that being too much is exactly what makes her unforgettable. She has stepped into her archetype fully, not as a plea, but as a proclamation. The world begins to test her in subtler ways. New suitors arrive with polished charm, with words carefully crafted to impress. Once she would have been disarmed by such performances. Now she sees through them with ease. Her intuition, sharpened by shadow, senses the hollow notes in their song. She no longer confuses attention with devotion. She does not crave pursuit, she evaluates it. And in her evaluation lies her power. Her allure becomes legend among those who cross her path. Some call her enigmatic, others dangerous. But beneath these labels lies the same recognition. She cannot be possessed. This terrifies those who seek to consume and enchants those who seek to revere. She does not chase either. She moves with the calm inevitability of someone who knows her worth is not in being desired, but in being sovereign. The mythic parallels deepen further. She is no longer Persephone waiting to be rescued, no longer Lilith cast out for refusal. She is both exile and queen, both descent and ascent. She carries within her the darkness of the underworld and the radiance of return. She is the alchemy of opposites, the siren who lures without effort, the high priestess who sees beyond masks, the shadow queen who reigns without compromise. These are no longer stories she reads, they are stories she lives. Her healing becomes her art. She speaks in ways that awaken others, not by lecturing but by embodying what they long to reclaim in themselves. Women drawn into her orbit begin to sense their own power reflected back, as though her presence is a mirror of their hidden depths. She does not preach. She does not convince. She simply exists, and her existence becomes a spell. The ache of her past lingers, but it no longer weakens her. It is woven into her magnetism, a texture that cannot be faked. Those who meet her sense both her softness and her steel, and they are left haunted by the combination. This is not the allure of youth or surface charm. It is the allure of a woman who has faced herself and refuses to apologize for what she found. Her empire expands invisibly, not in land or riches, but in influence, in the quiet authority she carries, in the way others remember her long after she is gone. She does not force devotion, it arrives unbidden. She does not demand loyalty, it is given freely. This is the paradox of true power. The less she grasps, the more she holds. And as night descends, she walks barefoot across the marble floor once more, but this time it is not cold, it is grounding. The darkness around her no longer feels like threat but like kingdom, vast and unclaimed. And somewhere within its shadows, a throne waits, carved not by his hands but by her own fire. The throne is not gilded. It is carved from stone, heavy with history, etched with scars that mirror her own. She does not sit upon it as a conqueror of others, but as the sovereign of herself. Every fracture she endured, every silence she survived, every illusion she shattered has built this seat of power. And as she lowers herself into it, she feels not triumph but peace. Peace of one who no longer negotiates her worth. The new reality is not free of shadows, it is forged with them. She no longer fears the echo of old wounds because they serve as her guardians now. Each scar whispers its lesson, Each memory reminds her of what will never be repeated. This integration is the ultimate reward, not the erasure of pain, but its transmutation into wisdom. She is whole, not because she is untouched, but because she embraces all that has touched her. Her allure in this reality is untouchable. People sense it before she speaks, the aura of one who has walked through fire and emerged unburned, carrying flames in her eyes. She does not chase, does not plead, does not bend. Her silence is no longer emptiness but presence, thick with meaning, magnetic in its restraint. Those who encounter her may not understand why they are drawn to her, but they feel it in their bones. She is not a woman to be claimed. She is a force to be reckoned with. Her relationships shift into sacred contracts. She no longer entertains half measures, no longer settles for devotion that is conditional or brittle. Those who approach must meet her as equals or not at all. She does not fear solitude, for solitude is her sanctuary. She does not fear rejection, for rejection is protection. What once broke her now bends before her. On the mythic plane, she has become what the ancients whispered about in fragments, the woman who embodies both the siren and the high priestess, both the femme fatale and the shadow queen. She does not choose between them. She carries all within her, moving fluidly between enchantment and sovereignty, mystery and command. Her power lies not in one mask, but in the wholeness of her many faces. And this is the hidden reward the cycle could never give her. She is no longer terrified of her shadow. She wears it like silk, draped and gleaming, an adornment that makes her presence unforgettable. What once haunted her has become her crown. What once consumed her has become her weapon. What once silenced her has become her voice. The hidden cost of staying was her life force, drained and dimmed. The hidden gift of leaving is her rebirth, untouchable, sovereign, magnetic in her presence. She is no longer the empath who begged to be seen, nor the victim who wept in silence. She is the sovereign woman who sees herself, who chooses herself, who rules herself. And in doing so, she becomes the woman who needs no savior, for she has already saved herself. Her story does not end here. The empire of her being will continue to expand, rippling outward into every connection, every creation, every silent glance that leaves others haunted. But the foundation has been laid. The crown rests on her head, the throne beneath her hands, the fire in her gaze. She is not returning to who she was. She is becoming who she was always meant to be. And as she rises from her throne, shadows gathering like loyal sentinels around her, she whispers a truth that will echo through every room she enters. The cycle is broken. I am sovereign.